This session sets the stage for our 10-week study of technology and the impact that it has had and continues to have on civilization. In this week's lesson, we will examine the differences between a tool and a machine, discuss the impact the clock had on modern civilization, examine the concepts of space, distance, movement, and what impact technology has on these, and delve into the role of capitalism in techniques. The first thing we're going to look at is what is a machine, and Mumford mentions Franz Rouleau's definition in the textbook. Franz Rouleau was a mechanical engineer, lived around 1829 to 1905. He was appointed as president of the Royal Technical Academy, was a leader in the profession of techniques and technology, contributed to many important domains of science and knowledge. And his definition of the machine is a combination of resistant bodies so arranged that by their means the mechanical forces of nature can be compelled to do work accompanied by certain determinate motions. And while this definition is interesting, and Rouleau is definitely a leader in his field, this definition doesn't take us very far and definitely would fall short in light of today's machines. So Mumford brings up some purposes for machines, and I want to go through these, mention each one, and give one example. First one is for converting energy. The simple example of a machine used to convert energy is the water wheel, which converted the energy of a swift-moving stream or river into the mill that used to grind, or into later on into factories where textile machines were run by water power. The next one is performing work. The printing press is a great example of this. The printing press performed work that was once done by scribes in reproducing written works, and obviously did it in a much more efficient way. The next purpose was enlarging the mechanical capacities of the human body. And one interesting example here I thought was a car jack. Even with a small car jack that you find in some of these smaller cars, maybe hidden under the spare tire in the trunk, you can lift, one side of a 3,000-pound car so that you can change the tire by simply just moving the lever up and down. And kind of in the same vein, enhancing the sensory capacities of the human body. Hearing aid would be an example of that. Eyeglasses, microscope, telescope would be examples of that. Then finally, reducing to a measurable order and regularity the processes of life. And the prime example there is the clock. Mumford gets into this little discussion of what's the difference between a machine and a tool. And he gives us a little bit of a guideline and says that the tool lends itself to manipulation. You can see the picture of the hammer, the diagram there. And I think the hammer is a great example of a tool because it does lend itself to manipulation. A hammer can be manipulated to pound in a nail with the striking face, which is number 5 on the diagram. It can be manipulated to pull out a nail with the claw, or even to tap something in with the cheek, which is number 6. The machine, on the other hand, lends itself to more automatic action rather than manipulation. Thinking here, if you see the picture, we have what's called a spinning mule. This was invented in 1779 by Samuel Crompton. Was used to spin textile fibers into yarn. And you can see there that it would have definitely been an automatic action. There was no room for manipulation by the craftsman. It was simply making sure that the machine was loaded with the fibers and making sure there was a power source. And then a third category that Mumford talks about is the machine tool. And the machine tool, according to Mumford, couples the accuracy of the machine with the skilled attendance of the workman. I thought a sewing machine would be a good example of this. I could probably use a sewing machine to put some stitches into a fabric, but lacking the skill to use the machine well, I probably would have trouble doing a quality job, for instance, of something like hemming a pair of pants. Mumford also gives the example of a lathe as being a machine tool. If you look at some of the discussion questions, some of the assignments that relate to this short section, which was section 1 starting on page 9, we have two wikis set up. What is a tool and what is a machine? And all students are expected to go to those wikis and to complete that activity. They're both located in the Deepening Understanding folder in Week 1 Learning session. And then Similarities and Differences activity in the Deepening Understanding folder. There are two threaded discussions where you're going to be asked to contribute and examine the similarities and differences between a tool and a machine. And then finally, keep in mind that the Week 1 Learning Assessment is open all week so that you can complete that as you go along rather than save it for the end of the week. So I guess if it was me, I would see some benefit in first going through the activities, doing the reading assignment, then doing the activities, then go ahead and do that learning assessment question 1. So if there are any questions, please either pronto me or email me, and I'll be glad to get back to you. If not, go ahead and do your activities and then proceed on to the next section, which is Section 2, The Monastery and the Clock, page 12 to 18. Thank you.